welcome to the Witch in the Woods, and today I would like to speak to you about the magical circle and the sacred space, exactly what they are, what function they serve, and how can we use them.
Imagination, imagination, imagination is the preview of life's coming attractions. Imagination is the preview of life's coming attractions. Preview of life's coming attraction. Whatever I imagine being, doing, or having, I can be, do, have. Whatever I imagine being, doing, or having, I can be, do, and have. Whatever I imagine being, doing, having, I can be, do, or have. Whatever I imagine being, doing, or having, whatever I imagine being, doing, or having, or have, I can do, or having, or have. Imagination, yeah, imagination, imagination. Whatever I imagine being or having, I can be, do, or have. Whatever I imagine being, doing, or having, I can be, do, or have. Whatever I imagine being, doing, or having, I can imagine being, doing, or having. Whatever I imagine being, doing, or having, I can be.
Hi, welcome to the Witch in the Woods, and today I would like to speak to you about sacred space and creating a circle. What exactly it is, what purpose it serves, and how can we use it. So, before I begin, there's a lot of videos out there on sacred space, and so I just wanted to explore the background of how sacred circles have been used in the past. So many practitioners of magic create what is called a circle, but where does this idea come from? And how do we know whether it is a genuine part of paganism or something that's been reinvented in modern times? The notions of neo-paganism have been reinvented in our times, arguably from doctrines that have been retrieved from the mists of time. But do we really know anything, or has everything been entirely invented anew? And we really should question whether what we are doing is genuine and has a purpose, or whether it is some notion that was dreamt up sometime in the last century and questionable. We do know that our ancestors, for reasons best known to themselves, spent a lot of time and energy in creating stone circles in the landscape. Now, these are not perfect circles, that must be said. Quite a lot of the time they are egg-shaped structures. And one thing we do know about them, though we don't know a lot about them, is that they mark pointers of sunrise and sunset at certain times of the year, and also moonrise and insects, and now recently, arguably, also marking out constellations.
Imagination, yeah, yeah, yeah. Imagination, yeah, yeah, yeah. Imagination, yeah, yeah, yeah. Imagination. What I imagine being, doing, or having, I can be, do, or have. What I imagine being, doing, or having, I can be, do, or have. What I imagine being, doing, or having, I can be, do, or have. What I imagine being, doing, or having, I can be, do, or have. Imagination, 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 imagination, whatever I imagine being doing or having, I can be do or have. Whatever I imagine being doing or having, I can be do or have. Whatever I imagine being doing or having, I can be do or have. I imagine being doing or having. Imagination. I can certainly be do or have. I can certainly be called imagination. I can certainly be called imagination.
So, for some reason, they marked out on the landscape specific cosmic events, and also these monuments were connected to death graveyards, burial places, and arguably ancestor worship. So, in some way, they wanted to connect the cosmos, the heavens, the sky and the earth to the world of the dead, to the ancestors and to the lands. So it was originally believed that these monuments were created by druids, and this was an idea that had been put forward by a guy called William Stukeley in the 18th century, who at that time was connected to all things of a Celtic and romantic revival. He was connected to the Druid order, and he was living in an age where he was seeing these monuments ripped out and ploughed under and blown up, that quite a lot of these standing stones had been dynamited in his age. And he saw this as a very important time to start speaking up about these monuments in order to save them, in order to gain them the respect that they deserved. They had been associated quite a lot with devil worship, with witches, and many stories abounded, such as they were people who were dancing on a Sabbath who had been turned to stone. So they were associated with sinners and with evil and dark and malevolent forces. All we actually know of these sites is limited. The earliest site in Britain are the Ring of Brodgar in the Orkney Islands in the far north of Scotland. And these actually predate Stonehenge. And although it was attributed to Druids, we later found out that they were far, far older than the Druids themselves. And since have been attributed to the work of early Neolithic farmers from Anatolia. But this is strange because not all of them could possibly be made by these Anatolian Neolithic farmers. In fact, Karnak is thousands of years older, so not all of them could have been made by early Neolithic farmers. In fact, they now think that Karnak predates the arrival of Neolithic farmers and were made by Western hunter-gatherers. The earliest of all these sites is Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, which predates the Ring of Brodgar and Stonehenge by thousands of years. So you could almost say these stone circles were very fundamental to the creation of society as it once was. They certainly took a lot of doing, a lot of manpower, a lot of years of work and a lot of planning. So their astronomical alignments would not amount to be a primitive kind of calendar. And for an agricultural society, you could see that this was perhaps necessary to understand when to plant and to gain an understanding of the months, the years and the season. But one thing we can say for sure is that their mathematics was quite advanced. Their knowledge of star law was quite advanced. They seem to have an understanding of the precession of the equinoxes, which indicates a vast knowledge of not only mathematics but astronomy. So perhaps they weren't quite as primitive as we at first thought them to be. So they held ceremonial significance too, and not always in an obvious way. We know these days, quite a lot of us know, that it is said that some of the ancient monuments mark out stars in the sky and may indicate places like Orion. What is less well known is that in some stone circles, such as Kasserig, the stones actually mimic the landscape around them. And this was discovered by Aubrey Bell in the 1980s. And it's as if the stones mimic the landscape to create a microcosm within the macrocosm. For what purpose we do not know. And strangely, Kasserig is the only circle that actually has a square within it. It has a little off-centre building shape, or square set of stones, which nobody really understands why they were there. But oddly, I've been to Kasserig quite a few times, and I used to live in Cumbria, and the only way this offset square of stones makes sense to me is when you view down the valley towards Helvellyn, which is a jumble of mountains, jumble of hills and a jumble of shapes. If you stand at certain angles, the square within the circle mimics all the variety of shapes going on looking down the valley towards Helvellyn, which I've got some old photos, so I'll find them and I'll put them on so you can understand what I'm talking about.
Imagination is everything. Imagination, your imagination just now wants to sing. Your imagination is singing for you.
And another about these monuments was that they were connected by ceremonial paths and by straight lines and what Alfred Rock called ley lines. We may never entirely understand their significance, but we do know that in many ways they were significant. It would seem in many of these ways that these stone circles connected with burial mounds, cairns and worship of the dead in some way mimicked the adage, as above, so below, the microcosm and the macrocosm and the metaphysical universe. Therefore you might conclude that what was done on the smaller scale would somehow be reflected in what was going on in the larger scale. Perhaps our ancestors didn't differentiate between the real and the symbolic in the way that we do today, and much of our thinking today is kind of the result of our education system splitting up the science and the arts, the mathematics and the religion, and perhaps that wasn't something that mankind always did. Perhaps it didn't separate the right brain and the left brain quite so easily. I know we think of them as simple people using simple tools, but they did in fact have advanced mathematical knowledge. They had amazing skills considering the tools that they used, and unbelievable results for somebody that we consider to have a lack of basic society and advanced technology. So it's clear in some ways that people were taking part in feasts at these sacred sites, and we presume also that they were taking some kind of ceremonial action there, but we know nothing, and we can conjecture all we like, but we have very little that we can prove. We know that they marked a significance to the winter solstice, and some would say the summer solstice. The fact that the sacred spaces were circular gave us the wheel of the year and the direction of certain events, such as the winter solstice taking place in the northern part of the hemisphere, the summer solstice taking place in the southern part of the hemisphere, and therefore it seemed logical to divide the wheel up in this way. We can also say that if you stand on the highest point of a hill and you look around you, all you can see is the circle, a circle of the horizon, from which we can obviously mark the rising sun, which is due east at spring equinox. The setting sun is due west at autumn equinox, and so this gives us a sense of direction, of our place on the world, on the planet, of our place in the seasons, and of the directions of certain things that are immovable, such as the North Star, or the setting suns, or even the height of the sun at midday. And so from the circle, the place of observance is the centre point, and the centre point is very important too. Now, many countries are divided into 5 counties, and you can see this best in Ireland. And you have northern counties, eastern counties, southern counties, western counties, and then you have a midpoint, you have a mid-county. And the midpoint is often called the omphalos, the navel, the belly, and this is considered to be the sacred place. The centre is the sacred place of all. And so we can derive from this also that if we stand in the centre of a circle, we are in fact emulating the macrocosm and the microcosm in symbolic and magical form. So also there are the 3 worlds If we stand in a circle, we can see not only around the horizon, but we can see the above, the below, and the level that we're at. So there's many ways of dividing the sacred space. There are the three worlds of shamanic thought, also sort of on Yggdrasil, the world tree. There's the upper world, there's the trunk of the tree, there's the lower worlds, and then there's the four directions around us. So these give us the sacred numbers of 3, which are the 3 worlds, 5, which are the 4 elements and the centre element, or the place of ether, or 7, which are the 4 directions above, below and within. So you can use any of these numbers to have a magical significance if you want to create a magical space. So once the circle is cast, and this can be done in many ways, it's good to finish with the old adage of as above, so below, as within. And so I like to finish with as above, so below. This ties the 2 worlds together. This creates a space in which what I do on the inner levels will affect what happens on the outer levels. So here's a short explanation of how I cast a circle. Everyone casts a circle different. Some people don't even cast a circle at all. Some people have elaborate ritual. I tend to do it simply. I have a makeshift altar that I create wherever I am. Some people have a permanent altar. Some people have permanent ritual rooms. Most of us are working in a room that has a mundane function as well. And so if you are working in a room that also has a mundane function, it's best to start by cleansing the space. And also it's best to start by cleansing yourself in some way and putting on either clean clothes or clean ritual clothes, which means that you have divested your human personality and are now taking on a different role, a different part of yourself. So the consensus is that a sacred space, a circle, is created to keep out negative forces, to keep out negative energies, negative spirits from your circle. I also see it as a way of containing the energies that you create in your circle, and by finding your own magical centre, of defining where your heart is, where your power is in the world as well. So the ancients knew and worked with the phases of the seasons and of the moon, and so when we create a sacred space, we've got to keep this in mind as well. To do growing work with the growing moon, to do banishing work with the waning moon, to work widdershins or geosil, which is very important too. So creating a sacred space can be as elaborate or as simple as you like. Some people find it not necessary. Personally, I like to change my consciousness and change the atmosphere, because you can feel it change by putting the energy into a circle. What we know of witchcraft has come down to us mainly through the works of people like Gerald Gardner, who said that he was trying to save for posterity that which had been passed on orally and in traditional witchcraft covens. Of course, we don't really know, but it's conjecture whether we do know or not what exactly traditionally went on in witchcraft covens. We can only really speculate as to what people were doing thousands of years ago. But to mark a circle, whether a permanent circle in the landscape and to work outdoors, is very powerful too. Or to mark one as a temporary circle would seem to define the space that we inhabit, the energies that we are calling into a space, and to contain them within, so that we can work with our own magical energies in a defined and ritualistic area. So that's it. I hope that you enjoyed this video and that what I said was of some use to you. If you've got any questions or comments, please write them in the box below. And if you would like and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me as well. And thank you for listening, and I hope to speak to you all again soon. Thank you. Goodbye.